Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm a coder on, I think, the project we're calling Mass Access right now to automate some of the creation of digital documents for filling out court forms.
Hi, everybody. I am Matt, and I am a lawyer. And together, Michelle and I are going to go through and do our best to talk about some documentation and variable naming conventions. So first of all, Michelle, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen so that we can start looking at this documentation, please.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
We're all a bit new to this world. Well, in different ways. Okay.
All right. So when we
I will
talk
take
about
us to the top.
documentation, this is what we mean.
So we're gonna put a link actually to this document somewhere around this video, whatever kind of system we have.
Yep.
And we'll also give a link to our Slack channel where you can ask more questions, because this system, we are building it as we're building the plane as we're flying it. So it's changing and it is complex. It is a complex way to interact with PDFs. So
to that end, if you have questions, there's an invite to the Slack channel somewhere in the vicinity of this video. Michelle's on there, I'm on there, a ton of really smart people are on there. You can always ask your questions there.
And we're all human, right, Matt?
Yeah.
You found that out.
So like, it's important to realize that, as Michelle was saying, that we're building this plane as we fly it. Michelle's a human being, I'm a human being, you're all human beings.
And you're a human being. Yeah, that's the important part.
Right. So we're all going through a really stressful time together.
So if you make a mistake, if you like don't get it, or you do what you do what you can, we're all going to make mistakes. If you feel some kind of way about it, that's totally legit. It's valid, and just keep going, and talk to us.
Talk to us if you want.
It'll be okay.
It'll
be okay.
Yeah, and thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to volunteer on this project. So
next time you can skip this intro. All right.
Let's dive in.
All right. So first of all, these are the very basics of the system we're talking about now, which is not going to seem that way because it's going to look a little nuts. We'll work on it. If you want to take it further, talk to us. There are other pieces of this that can be added on and that we're working on adding on. So this interview is not, there are things this interview is not. It is not an explanation of the technical process of creating fields and labeling them. That either is or will be a different video, spoken from past us. This is also not, that was it. This is what this is not. We're not labeling. This is about the names, the labels that you will give to your field, what words you will pick to put in the fields. We're calling those labels. So what labels you will give each field.
Sometimes when you get a PDF, it might not have those little off blue boxes already that allow you to just type directly in them. We're assuming for the purposes of this video that you've already got those good to go.
So we want to address why these words and these systems are important. One is because computers are weird. So PDFs have to have each label has to be unique in a PDF. Each field name has to be unique. You can never repeat them or the PDF doesn't understand them. So that's some of what we talk about, how to make things unique. Another part is that, sorry, I lost my page. So another part of it is that we are trying to make a system that makes it less work for you and less work for the coders. We're trying to simplify, though it might not seem that way, we're trying to simplify the process from in each individual step. If we all use these specific words in our field names, then it will simplify the process. There's some processing the program is going to be able to do to generate automatic questions that you won't have to bother with, and that will create code automatically that then the coder won't have to mess with. And it will mean that if there are, three, places where the user needs to put in their name, 3 interviews, the user's going through a bunch of interviews, they don't have to fill out their name 3 times. It'll mean they just have to do it once if we use these words. So we are standardizing some very commonly used fields. So there are a couple things we need to think about that seem obvious. They are obvious, but in this context, you will see how they interact. Is it ready? Are there any questions you have, Matt? Or is that
all set for now?
Cool. So first of all, a user, a form can have one person filling it out, or it can have multiple people filling it out. The person filling it out can have one child, or they can have multiple children. So the idea of multiples is something we're going to discuss. And we're not going to go over the second part because that is no longer relevant. So that is the main thing, I think. So let's talk about the labels. First, we're going to talk about information about people. You have fields on the PDF, and the user needs to fill in these answers. And so some of these answers are going to relate to people. We're going to call the person filling out the form a user. If there are multiple people filling out the form, they are all users. If the plaintiff and the defendant are filling out the form, then one is user 1 and one is user 2. A child is another type of person we have, and there can be multiples of those. An other party is another type of person we have that right now it's called opposing party/parties. And right now we're using it for anyone who is not the user, the child, or the witness. And the witness is the 4th kind of person we have that the program can account for. Is that what we need to cover in that section? Any questions?
Yeah, just a bit of lawyer stuff up at the top. So the user could be a plaintiff, it could be a defendant, it could be a petitioner, it could be a respondent. Whatever the user
could be all of those.
it is all of those, but depending upon the context, it's whoever's filling out the form. And so when you're starting to use other party, depending upon the context, that could mean plaintiff, that could mean defendant.
It's the people who are not filling out the form.
People who are not filling out the form. So
except witnesses are special. Witnesses are special.
Law students who are filling this out, you need to the best of your ability, try to get out of the plaintiff, defendant, petitioner, respondent mindset and try to get into this headspace of who is filling out this form, because that is the meaningful distinction here. So we have the people who are filling out the form, who are users, children, witnesses, and everybody else, which is other party.
Right. I'll try to change the order of those later. Great points. So people are very similar. They have similar things we want to know about them, like their names and their last names, their first names. A lot of times you want to know gender, that kind of thing. So we have specific words that we can use, specific labels to use that will help the computer make it easier for everybody, though it's hard for now. So we have a user, a person who's filling out the form, and we want to know their first name, right? We want them to write in their first name. So we call this field user name first, and exactly that. It can't be any other order of words or letters. It has to be user name first, exactly how it appears here. And you can always go to the link in the documentation to find this again. We also have username middle, username last, suffix, and so on. I mean, that's not so on, that's what we have. So there's also user gender, which is, now this gets a bit specific, this is where there is just a place for them to write in their gender. So it's not checkboxes, it's just a place where you write in the gender. Because that's what's available on some forms. In other forms, there are checkboxes, maybe for male, female, maybe for other. if that's the case, then you use these three conventions: user gender male, user gender female, user gender other. And that will let us make those choices for the user instead of just putting a text box in there. You've also got user birth date, you've got user signature, and you've got their contact information, like their user address street, again in this order, user address street, that's the house address, like 25 Miller, right, Road, and then user address street 2, which is the apartment number 3, right, APT3.
And
So you've got, okay, go ahead, sorry.
when you say this order, what you mean is you have to do user address street, right? You couldn't do street address user. The computer's not going to know what that means.
Right. It's not gonna, it's like a 2-year-old. It needs to know what to expect, and then it needs to get what it expects. It's very literal. Exactly. So you have user address zip state, user address zip, user email, and user phone. So these are the basics you have for people. This is the basic information you have for people. There's one other piece of information that is not, that should be up there, and I am sorry, we will move it there very soon. There's also user signature. Oh, we did user signature, never mind. We're brilliant, that's what you can take from that.
Is
Okay.
now a decent time to talk about entities and organizations and what to do for their names?
This might be a good time.
Yeah.
So if the people filling out the form, and if the other party, it's usually the other party, right, Matt? That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
If the other party is an organization, then just use username first, and that will get us what we want.
Or other party name first.
Right. Sorry. Oh my God! Don't listen to what I say.
That's why we have a lawyer and a coder.
Yes, it's good. It's good. This is why we do it this way. I don't show it up here, but the same convention works for every different type of person. So if it was an other party, we would do other party name first, right?
Yes.
So that should be this next section, but it isn't. If it is an organization, you just use other party name first. Or if the user is an organization, or the child is an organization, you use child name. No, children are not organizations. And we do this because organizations are not people, no matter what the courts say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry if you disagree with me, but they only have a first name.
Probably not too many people on this project.
Who feel that way. So let's talk about when we have more than one user, or more than one other party, or more than one, of a type of person. We add a number specifically here, specifically next to the type of person they are. So user 2 is the second user. So this is a label for a field that asks for the second user's first name, right? User 2 name first. And you can do user 3 name first, and it works for all of these and the other person words, right? User 2 name first, user 2 name middle, user 2 name last. So for example, user 2 could be the spouse that's also filling out the form. That could say user 2 is filling out the form with their name first, name middle. Any thoughts about that, Matt?
No.
Okay. So these same patterns, like I was saying, work with child, other party, and witness. You can do child 3 name first, other party 4 name first, which if it's an organization will be the only name it has. Witness 6 name first, or witness 6, or you never need gender, but child 3 gender, you know, whatever it is that's needed. So what if, so you can, you only use these special names, these special words for these specific purposes. You can't use them for anything else because the computer will think that you mean what it wants you to mean with them. So there are times when you might feel that you really need to use one of these labels. Well, you can't. What you can do is you can try and come up with something more specific. What was the
So,
example you gave, Matt?
for example, on certain restraining order forms, you might be asked to put an abuser's aliases, so different names that they go by. And this is one of those times where how a person thinks about this and how a computer thinks about it actually line up pretty well. If you were asking for an alias, you wouldn't say other party name first, other party name second, other party name last, other party name middle, because that would be confusing. You would think that they were asking for the same information that you put when you just put the normal name that they use. You would put alias name first, or you would ask for the
Well,
alias name.
other party alias name first,
Right.
or whatever it is you come up with, name first alias, or whatever it is you come up with. The computer will probably like alias name first better, but
Right.
no, name first, never mind.
Party alias
Whatever.
name first.
Anyway,
Alias.
but basically make up your own name, and we'll talk a little bit later about making up your own names that is more specific or different in some way. It ideally will make sense to another person reading it.
Right. And this is all just going back to the basic underlying principle of why we're here and doing this video and why you're bothering to watch it in the first place, which is making unique PDF field names that are useful to the computer and to us down the line.
And to us.
Yeah.
Coding is a lot about communication. And some of coding is about communicating to the computer, and a lot of coding is about communicating to each other, to humans. So now we're going to skip a whole section that is not within the scope of this video. So court information is another, and these are other fields you need to fill in on the form that we have created a process for. So there is a docket number for a field where you need to write a docket number. There, you can also do docket number 2 for a second docket number you want to include in there. You can do court name, specifically court name, this should say court address county. So I will fix that, court address county, that in many forms this says SS where the county should go. So I am told. This is not
It's true.
my personal knowledge. There we go, confirmed. And you can do court to name or court to address county. Just ignore. I can't believe. Anyway, and there are.
Build it as we fly it.
Yeah, build it and build it. All right, so signature date is another field that the computer will recognize, that the program will recognize. And then you've got other dates, things that end in date. So it can be incident, but it can be other dates. But if you put, this is the important part right here, the end. If you put something that says date, then the program will know that you're going to write a full date in there. The day, month, year numbers. That if you put date day, then the computer will know that you want to put in just the day, so the 23rd. If you put the date month, then it will know that you want to put in just the month, like 03. If you want to put in, and I swear we have seen this, maybe y'all are familiar with it, but it was news to me, the date, day, month, where you just want the day and the month. So the 23rd, 2303.
Yeah.
And then because some things split them up, right? There's the 4-digit year where you just want the year. And then And I couldn't believe this. There's a space where you want a 2-digit year. So just the last digits, just the decade, right? Like 2020, you just want 20, or 2018, you just want 18.
For the lawyers and law students out there, this is like when you fill out a certificate of service or something like that, and the court or whoever has pre-printed the first 2 digits of the year. So,
Right.
and it's a real pain in the butt for this process.
And then ignore season for now. Just ignore it. We'll deal with it later. But incident is incidental. This can be anything. This can be like, I don't know, party date, or
Exactly what I was thinking.
party is a thing in. I was thinking celebration date.
Yeah.
No. Parade date. I have no idea what you people do.
Holiday
But,
date. Incident is a really good one, actually. So.
Okay, but incident is an example. It doesn't have to be an incident.
Or
So
yeah.
So let's take a moment now and take a deep breath and get the cat to calm down.
Yeah.
We're going to go into a different section next. And this section is custom labels. So coming up with your own labels when you need something more than the ones we have mentioned here, because those are not the only labels you need on a PDF for some reason. So there are some things that it is really important to do when you're labeling fields on a PDF. For one thing is, the names have to start with a letter or underscore, this symbol right here. Oops. Oh, cat. You're making this very difficult. So an underscore, right? It cannot, just you know what, just start it with a letter. Don't worry about the underscore. Just start it with a letter. Just start it with a letter, and don't start it with anything else. It can't be a 9, 10. It can't be a star. It's just A through Z.
Again, all lowercase.
All lowercase. Well, that's a nice to have, but yes, we prefer all lowercase. That will be in the what's useful. So the field names can only include, the labels can only include letters, numbers, and underscores. Cannot use any other characters. They're like the opposite of passwords. Try to keep the length of the variables, the variable names, that needs to be changed. Try to keep the length of the field names under 79 characters, which probably doesn't need to be said, but just in case someone gets over enthusiastic, they have a limit. Also, when you run across a large area, for writing a paragraph, say it's like an affidavit, right? That's one of those.
Yeah.
There you go. This is for making the fields, but we'll get this into the other video. Dang it, this is not for label names. Give it, but I'll say just to finish the thought, make one big field and give it one label. Don't make individual lines. All right. So, and again, these custom labels are about communicating with each other. So don't label things with Adobe's defaults. Don't label things field 1, field 2. That'll make it very hard for the programmers to try and interpret what you intended. Okay. So here's some useful things to do with labels. Field names that would be very useful to programmers and also for other reasons. So first of all, use all lowercase letters. Just forget uppercase even exists. Just use lowercase letters. Secondly, separate multiple words with an underscore. That makes them more readable. But you remember there's no other characters other than letters, underscores, and numbers. Spaces are right out. Like, just no spaces. Oh shoot, we have to go back. Well, we'll go back at the end of this to say one more thing about field names up there. So another thing is make the labels descriptive. Like I was saying, not field 1, not field 2, not a default. Make them something that a human will understand. Then, if they can be descriptive and short, then that's even better. That's fantastic.
But
less typing.
descriptive above short.
Huh?
But
Yes, descriptive is definitely above short.
yeah.
Descriptive. I wish I could underline this right here. Descriptive is better than short.
Yeah.
So another nice to have is when you have several related fields in a row, try to group them together with the first word, the first part of the word. So if you have a bunch of stuff about assets, do, which I don't know what these things are, but do asset checking, asset savings, and so on and so forth.
So for
Right?
example, if you're filling out, if you're labeling a bunch of fields related on a financial statement, right? There's probably a column that's about income and a column that's about assets. So, you know, you want to make sure that it's easy to group those things together conceptually.
All right. So next, you want to avoid acronyms and abbreviations unless they are incredibly common, such as ID. Why is that? It's because coders aren't lawyers. We have no idea what your abbreviations mean. It's gibberish. And sorry about that. They're going to be a little bit longer and more descriptive. Also, it'd be very useful if you use verb-noun pairs for checkboxes and radio buttons. Basically, for say, you know, it is parent or speaks Spanish, has assets. So for example, user is parent is one version of that. For checkboxes that have a yes/no pair, that you just have a yes and no, end them with yes and no. Like we ended stuff with date before, end them with yes and no. So user is parent yes, and user is parent no is when there are only two options you can pick, which is either yes or no. And this is, the is parent is for like a checkbox, like it says has addendum, right? Like, does this have an addendum? And it's a checkbox. That's has addendum. I know that word. You should be really impressed. Thank you.
I think another way to phrase this is you're think of the variable name as like the question the box is asking, right? Is this person the parent? Does this person speak Spanish? Does this person have assets?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And this is for specifically if you have two choices and one is a yes and one is a no. And then there's just the apparently repeated information about the date variables, about putting underscore date at the end of them.
And I think it's important to restate what Michelle has been saying a lot, which is these are the nice to haves, right? So if you don't get this part of it, if it's a little confusing, don't worry about that as much, right? The big important stuff is the stuff we talked about earlier, or that Michelle primarily talked about earlier.
And one more thing, which I should have talked about earlier, which is what if you have multiple places where you put the user's name, right? Or what if you have multiple places where you put the user's signature? So there's user one and user two, but there's also signature one and signature two. So you can do user signature one, and you can do user signature two. And this is where we might want to get your Word document out. But
let's do it right this time.
Let's do it right this time. Y'all, this isn't the first video we've recorded.
It's not.
Just a peek behind the curtain. We have tried this before. All right, I will stop sharing so that you can start sharing when you're ready. Don't show that old document.
No, that old document has been erased from existence. All right.
Good.
We have a blank. So
let's say we have two signatures. We have one user and two signatures. Can you make that a bit bigger?
Yes, I'll type it out first and then.
Sure.
How's that?
That's great. That's gorgeous.
So yeah, so we have users.
This is if you have one signature.
So can we name our user just to concretize this a little bit?
Sure. Their name is Matt.
All right.
You know too much coding, Matt.
All right.
But yeah, username first. Don't do equals. I don't know, do a colon or something. We know that username first is Matt. That's what we know. That's what Matt filled out. We put in username first and Matt wrote out his name. Then we asked for the user signature and Matt added his signature, XXX, because Matt doesn't know how to write his own name and that is totally okay. But say you want to have there's another field for a signature. So you would do user signature 2 for his next signature.
Isn't it __2?
Oh,
Oh, no,
we're
not
just
for
going to do
this.
2 right now. For this, we're going to do just 2. Things can change in life and we'll see how that goes. Now, let's get a little bit more complex, and I hope this is the last piece of this puzzle, folks. Stick with us. Say there is a second user, and their name is Michelle. User name first, or user 2 name first. Oh, thank God you're here, Matt. Sorry, folks. Michelle.
This is why we've had to do this video multiple times.
Yes.
I screwed
This is
up
not the
there.
only reason, but yeah. Oh, both of us. So user 2 name first, Michelle. Yeah, add a paragraph. That's good. I was about to say that. And so what do we do now for his signature? Because we can't do user signature. What do we do, Matt? No. You missed it. You missed it the second time around.
Well,
User 2 signature.
oh,
Yep. There we go. So that is the first time, and I write mine with all O's, which is very good. But then there's a second place for my signature as well, the most complex of these, and we would then have 2 plurals here: user 2, signature 2. This is the second user's second signature. All zeros. I'm zeros all the way. And I think that about covers it. Can you click on that little paragraph symbol right under Acrobat so people can see it without the markings?
right.
In your,
Yeah.
there you go. And I think that about covers these conventions. There are more things we're working on, and we will try to keep you up to date on what's changing. Are there any other questions you're left with, Matt?
No. I
Okay.
think you've done a great job, Michelle. Thank you so much for taking the time and lending your experience and skills to this project. And
you as well.
yeah, you're welcome. Again, if you have any questions, you can find us in Slack. You'd find there's a link to that in the video here. You can find a link to the documentation in this video. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to bring them up. And thank you all for your time. We hope you're holding up. And
and if you have any ideas about how to change this process, talk to us about them. There might be some things we can do and might be some things we can't. Just forgot that. A little call out. Put it in the comments. No, don't put it in the comments. Come to Slack. Really, we're not going to read the comments. We have too much to do.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
You all have too much to do. This is a busy time for everybody.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and have a great day.